Hey honey, where can I hang this at? Hi there, it's Chet Doneth with Doneth Outdoors. Today I want to show you how to turn this into this. There's a bunch of different ways you can do this, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of them. And I'm going to actually take you through all of those ways, and I'm going to show you why I don't recommend some and why I will recommend others. There's not necessarily the right way to do this, but there is pros and cons to each way. Okay, the first one I want to go over is a pretty popular one, and that's boiling. If you look up, how to do a European mount, 9 times out of 10 you probably see them boil their skull. And it's because it's fast and it's really easy and it works. It works pretty well. The problem with boiling, the problem that I personally have with boiling, and I've seen it firsthand happen, is if you take a nice beautiful mount like this, actually it'll be more like this, and you'll start taking the skin off of that, which we get into a whole nother host of problems when we have like an old deadhead like this. Like my son shot this last year and it's just been sitting in the tree, okay, and I just haven't been able to get to it, and so the skin is really leathery. This is going to take, it's best to get the skin off if you're going to boil it, first of all, because that's just so much more extra meat and stuff that's in there, and it's not going to work out how you want it to. So with that being said, this last way that I'm going to show you is going to be the easiest, and you'll be able to put the thing just like this. Alright, so boiling. What's wrong with boiling? So boiling, actually, you're going to be cooking the bone. And so one thing that can be wrong with that is that all that oil and that grease is going to cook into the bone, and it's going to be harder to get it whiter. Not impossible, but harder. The other thing that can go wrong with boiling is if you go a little bit too high of temperature, you're gonna it's gonna be brittle later on down the road. So it might work, it might look great, and then 2 years later, you take it off the wall and the teeth start falling out, and the nose starts falling out, and the nasal things are, coming out, and they're all brittle, and everything's real soft and brittle. And that can happen sometimes with boiling. That's why I don't really recommend it, and I'll never do it to my own skulls. The second option, okay, is a pretty popular option. I've seen a lot of guys and heard a lot of guys doing it, is actually burying the skull in the dirt. So you got worms, you got all kinds of different nasty bugs and stuff, and they'll be eating on that, and then you can pull it up in a couple more months, and it's gonna be like, it's gonna look terrible, but then you can whiten it, and that works pretty well. Couple things wrong with that is it takes forever, it takes a long time. And the second thing is, actually, this happened to me, is a neighbor dog, he gets in our trash and whatever, and I even had like a tote over the top of it, which it's hard to find a tote sometimes, when you did good, or whatever, and you got a good sized trophy, it's hard to find a tote that'll fit over those antlers. But if you can, you put that tote over there and you put a weight on it or whatever, and at least that will keep a lot of the things. But the bad thing about it is, if it's a big enough dog, like in my case, they actually pushed that over somehow, and they got that and they drug it off, and it's just completely destroyed. So I lost that trophy part of that animal, memento to remember. Actually, it was my son's deer, and so we lost that memento that he could have hung in his room or whatever. So that's why I'm against using that method. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't work. If you live in a place where you can protect it somehow and that doesn't happen, but my thing is, you're taking a chance, okay? You're taking a chance that maybe that will happen. And you got rodents that can burrow in there, they can dig in there. You got rats and stuff that be chewing all over the antlers, and it's hard to fix that, and it just scares me, and I'll never do it to my own mounts. Okay, so this leads me to the best method that you can do to make a European mount, but it's actually not the method that I'm going to recommend, and I'll tell you why. The best method is domestic beetles. I have domestic beetles right now. I've used domestic beetles in the past. They're incredibly effective, they're incredibly fast, and they pretty much come out looking like this. You only have to do a minimal amount of whitening. But the problem with domestic beetles, okay, they stink. They stink horrible. They are like eating dead, rotten flesh, okay? So you can't imagine that something that eats and makes its living eating rotten flesh is gonna taste very good. And so they take up room, you gotta care for them. When you get a colony, unless you buy an expensive colony that's already large and has enough to start cleaning your skulls right away, you're gonna buy a small colony of, say 200 to 500 beetles, and you're gonna have to wait, you know, take several months to grow the size and number that you're gonna need to put your skull in there and get it eaten down really fast. So that's the one problem, you know, and then the stinking, that's another problem. The fact that you have to care for them, so they can't get too cold and they can't get too hot. They need ventilation, and as you can see, this is beginning to be a whole new thing. But if you think that this is something that you want to do, it's not really worth it if you're going to do 1, 2, or 3 skulls a year. Maybe if you're going to be doing them for friends and you want to be doing it for a little bit of extra cash on the side or something like that, then maybe, you know, it would be worth it to take care of beetles. I'm currently, you know, raising some that will be ready by hopefully September, October, and I'll be able to do that for a little bit of extra money or whatever, or for myself or for friends. And so to me, it's worth it, and I have a barn that I can keep them in so I can keep the smell to a minimum and they can be well ventilated. And I already have the setup because, like I said, I've done this before. So that's why I would not recommend beetles, because they are such a pain in the butt. But if you think you want to do that, I would recommend probably subscribing maybe, because I'm going to definitely put out a video at some point on that method of cleaning and how it works for me. So here we are to the very last method, and I think it's the best method for somebody who is just needing to clean 1 mount or 2 mounts a year, and you just want to do it real fast. It's not real fast, I should say. It takes about 2 weeks, and that is maceration, okay? So that is basically taking this down with water. Let me show you my system. Alright guys, so as you can see behind me here, I basically have an old freezer. Now this is actually where I kept my original colony of beetles. Alright, so this thing is nasty right now because it actually has a head or a couple heads inside of it. As you can see, it's a nasty process. You know, it's out in the open, so rainwater can go in it, and that keeps it a little bit, you know, not so stale or whatever. But it is pretty nasty, and as you can see, you know, I got some green water going on. It's just a gross thing, but it doesn't really smell, and it can be kept outside, and you don't have to have it this big. Guys, this is way bigger than, like, if you're gonna do 1 or 2 skulls. Like, this is, I mean, I can put an elk skull in here, I can put a bear skull, I can put a couple, you know, elk skulls in here. This is pretty good size. It's way bigger than you need. I'd say the most you need for like a regular skull, you can do this with like a 5-gallon bucket or a tote or something like that. And it's so easy, man. You just add water and you put the skull in there and you wait, and you check it every once in a while. And I'd say the first time I check it is probably 2 weeks. All right, you pull it out, and you're gonna basically just test it and see how limber it is. You can almost pull this stuff off, and you can do this with the skin on too, which is great. Alright guys, so I'm just gonna pull this out. And so when I put this in there, it looked like the skull that I showed you at the very beginning of the thing. Okay, you can see that there's some like algae and moss that's growing on the antlers, and that's no big deal. You can wipe it off, but I want to show you when I pull this out. I had a rope, but obviously it left. I want to show you how. Let me get my other glove on, because I really don't like touching this stuff. I'm not very squeamish, but there is a lot of nasty stuff going on. So let me just get my gloves on that broke on me immediately, so that's cool. Just gonna go with that. So check it out, guys. Look, that just peels right off. That cannot be easier. That's skin. The muscle's gone, everything. This is the jaw, the muscles, gone. Look how easy that comes off. Like, the brain has kind of melted and came out. There's a little bit. So what you do is you're gonna sit this in a little bit more water with some Dawn dish liquid, and you're gonna go ahead and scrub it a little bit. And most of this stuff is gonna come off pretty easy. You might have to put a little bit of elbow grease in it, but it's gonna come off super easy, okay guys? And once this dries up, it's gonna get back hard again, and it's going to be ready to whiten, and I will show you the process of whitening, and it's also very easy. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to put my sons in here, and I'm not even going to worry about a rope because it didn't work last time, so I will fish it out when the time comes. So I'm going to set that down there nice and gentle. Alright guys, One thing I have to say, a disclaimer on this, okay? Obviously, like I said, you don't have to use anything this big. You can use a 5-gallon bucket. It's the same thing, especially for a whitetail deer skull. But the thing about this, guys, is it's extremely dangerous, especially if you have kids. If a kid would fall in this, you know, they can easily drown. So that's why I do use this freezer, because I actually have the lid, and I will keep the lid on that. And that way I don't have to worry about anything falling into this. I can put that over there. Grab my other thing out of the way. I can put that over there, and you can even put a lock on there, which I would recommend, and that will keep you safe from worry about anything getting in there, especially a child or something like that. So if you have a 5-gallon bucket or something and that's what you're using, then I would recommend putting something over it. Something that's not going to be easily pushed over, okay? Because if you have a kid that falls in there, they can drown from that, and it happens all the time. There's warnings on 5-gallon buckets. It's the same thing with a tote. You just don't want to mess around with that. It's just not, just take precautions, and then you can alleviate that worry. Alright guys, so from this point on you can do a lot of different things. So this is a skull. This is basically, I just cleaned it off with a white bristle brush and some Dawn dish liquid. And so you can see there's a lot of there's still a lot of like brown and yellow kind of hues to it, but for the most part it looks like a naturally bleached European mount. So if you like that look, you can stop here. So as far as the antlers go, you can take some Old English or some kind of like furniture or wood polish, and you can actually polish these antlers up, and they'll also take a stain. Depends. So if you know what the deer looked like before, something, maybe it was like a chocolate antler deer or something, you can try to match that with the stain. You don't want to put too much on there, let it sit. You know, just make sure when you do put it on, you're rubbing it off with a towel or something like that, so you don't have a bunch of weird streaks and stuff that will make it look unnatural. If you want the horns to be a darker color, you can do that. This mount here is a lot wider, and so what I used on it was this Salon Care 40 product. You can get this at a hairdresser store or a hair salon like store, commercial store where they sell hair salon products. Basically, I went in there and told them what I was doing, and they helped me out. They said a lot of different guys come in there and do the same thing, but this is basically a high percentage hydrogen peroxide. And so depending on how white you want this thing, if you don't want it real white, you just want to leave it on maybe for like 6 to 8 hours, something like that. I think I left this on overnight, and it's pretty white. It's not super white. I could get it whiter, but I like it to look a little natural. I don't like it to look too white. But if you do like it to be real white, just leave it on there for, you know, a day. If you really want it super white, leave it on there for a couple days. You don't want to leave it on there too long, because it does eat away a little bit at the bone, but for a couple days you'll be okay. You can use hydrogen, like regular strength hydrogen peroxide that you can get like at a medical store or like Walmart or you know, the dollar store or something like that. You can use that. It'll just take a little bit longer because it's just not as high of a percentage, but it'll definitely work, and it'll be cheaper. So if you're not doing a whole bunch, like I said earlier, and you just want to get it kind of white, hydrogen peroxide or something like that, like a low strength hydrogen peroxide will work just fine for that. And I just thought I would put the two together so that you kind of see the difference. So this one is using a hydrogen peroxide, and this one is just Maceration and a little Dawn dish liquid and elbow grease. And so, you know, it just basically comes down to the preference of what you like. So if you like this video and you learned something from this video, I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe, and have a lot more educational videos as well as a lot more hunts. And I'm going to be hunting all kinds of different things. I hunt all year round. I'm hunting something. If I'm not hunting, I'm fishing. So I'll be posting videos. I'm going to try to post a video every week. So if you got other ideas, or if even if you have just questions about this, if I can help you out, I'll try to. Just post a comment in the comments below, and I'll try to help you out. So I'm getting my beetle colony put together, and I'm trying to grow my colony size. So hopefully I'll be doing a lot of these this upcoming deer season, if not only for myself, maybe for some friends and things like that. But anyway, take care guys, happy hunting. I hope you get a great mount out of this, and I hope I taught you something. And if you have any comments, like I said, or questions, feel free to leave them in the comment section below. Hit the subscribe button, and take care. Good luck to you this hunting season.